Hi, everyone. Okay, this was supposed to be a TikTok, and then I realized as I started recording it that I could not squish this into 2.5 minutes, no matter how hard I try. So I figured we would do a quick little YouTube update for you. As you can see, I am not in Saskatoon. I am in Quebec at Chantal's house, in her cute little office. And I'll be here for probably like a month. So this is what you're going to be seeing for a while. I think she's picking me up some plants today, so we might get some like foliage to look at. But today I wanted to chat with you about the art of intuitive astrology and human design. And the reason this is on my mind is because we are in the process. One of the reasons that I'm here is we're planning out our 2025. And one of our goals for 2025, our big goal, is to launch the Academy. You guys have probably heard me talk about the Academy. It's something that has always been the long-term vision, but it is a lot of work. We really want to create a program for you that teaches you how to do the cosmic laundry method. We want to teach you the astrology, the human design, the psychology, the coaching skills, and the business skills that you need to run a practice similar to what I run, right? And so as I'm thinking about this, this week I've been kind of building out the curriculum. We're going to build it like a university, which makes me feel really excited because there's a part of me that is, you can even like feel I'm getting excited. There's a part of me that is an internal student. Like anytime I drive by or go past a university campus, I feel this like part of my heart that is like, oh, I really, really miss being in school and I miss learning. And so we're going to bring some of the academic or university mind or way of being into our academy, without all of the like rules and the brainwashing, to be honest. And so as I've been planning out the curriculum and planning out the syllabus and figuring out what this is going to look like, I've been thinking a lot about what allowed me to learn astrology so quickly because I learned how to read charts very, very fast. It probably only took me 3 months to start reading charts and maybe like 6 months for that to be like good reading, right? When I first started, it was more like cookbook astrology, and that's so normal, but I picked it up really quickly. And so I've been thinking a lot about how to replicate that for you guys. And I try to do this with my mentorship clients as well, but that is a little bit more tailored one-on-one to their own learning styles. So when I'm thinking about having a classroom of you, I'm like, okay, what do we have to do so you can learn this in 2 years? Because even though I learned it in 6 months, the average person is probably going to take 2 years. And here is why, okay? This is kind of like what we're coming back to. There's a part of the way that I read that is highly intuitive. And I think when people hear the term intuition, they think you have it or you don't, but that's just not true. That's not what we know about intuition. Intuition requires repetition and it requires a certain knowledge base as well as a comfort with the thing that you're being intuitive about. It requires connection. It requires knowledge of that thing. So there are different areas in life where we are all intuitive in our own ways, right? Even though I identify as a highly intuitive person, if I am lost in the bush with someone who is, has done a lot of hiking, is maybe a hunter, is like a self-proclaimed bushman, this is a weird example. I am always going to default to that person's intuition about what to do over mine, even if that person does not identify as a highly intuitive being. Intuition requires familiarity. That's the word I was looking for. It requires knowing the thing that you are wanting to be intuitive about. It requires neural pathways. And this is where I think a lot of the 10,000 hours conversation comes from. Like, it's very hard to be good at something if you haven't put in a lot of energy or effort towards that thing. And so I think sometimes people will see something or someone pick something up fast and think that that means that that person is really like gifted or genius at it. And I think there can be a component of that. But if we look at like when I picked up astrology, and the reason I picked it up so fast is because the type of astrology that I practice is archetypal in nature. And I have been studying archetype for a very long time. So when I got into the study of astrology, learning the 12 archetypes, learning the archetypes of the planets, learning how to blend these different archetypes together, it was pretty simple for me because I've been studying archetype for a really long time. And so there was an ability for this to be intuitive. I also, like, this is kind of a different kind of pathway, but I have been consuming media using that uses astrology language for my whole life. Like my first TV show that I was ever obsessed with was Sailor Moon. And so I already had a baseline understanding of these things. I wasn't coming into astrology with a beginner's mindset, really. I already knew quite a bit about it without ever really studying it. Um, and so there's this piece of intuition that does require repetition, practice, and familiarity. So if you are new to astrology and human design, it's really important that you're honest with yourself about how much of this you already know when you're coming into it. Because if you haven't done a lot of study on psychology or human behavior or archetypes or the collective unconscious or these kinds of things, if that hasn't been a world or a realm that you've been in, it's going to take some time. And it's really, really important that you are patient with that. It's really important that you trust yourself and you trust the intuitive, wisdom and information that is coming through you, but that you're not expecting that you're going to pick it up just like that because these things are a language. There's almost like a cultural element to them. They're an art. Like your brain is doing a lot of work when you were learning astrology and human design. The second piece, and the piece that really like spoke to me and that I really wanted to talk about today, is how to build your capacity for abstract thought and abstract thinking. This is not important for every astrologer to do. There are a lot of astrologers that are highly detailed, and that is what allows them to do really incredible predictive work, right? So if you are wanting to learn how to do the type of astrology where you can predict like the fall of an empire, like that's a really, old school example, but where you can do really, really succinct on the nose predictions, I'm probably not the teacher for you because that's not the way that I use astrology, and it's definitely not what I'm good at. What I am good at is understanding the soul's journey and understanding people. My astrology is people centered. It is the human behavior, or like the human experience focused. Okay. That is what I'm focused on, and that is what I'm good at. I am good at helping people to get from point A to point B. I'm good at helping people figure out and understand themselves and contemplate who they are and who they want to be. And so that kind of astrology requires a more zoomed out lens, a more abstract lens, and an ability to really look at the entire chart and look at it in an abstract kind of way, to pull out all of these details and pull them into one thing or two things, and to understand somebody as a whole. I would say all astrologers do that actually. And that requires abstract, intuitive thinking. It requires you to not get lost in the weeds and to not get so hyper focused on all of the details. Um, I took a course with Kelly Surtees at the very beginning of my journey when I was a baby astrologer. And she said something that was really, it was obviously pivotal for me because I think about it often and I often come back to it. And she said, your job as an astrologer is to decide what is important for the person in front of you to know. So something that I've noticed with baby astrologers is that they will often just throw as much information at you as possible, right? They'll say your Venus is in Taurus and it's at 26 degrees and it's conjunct your sun and conjunct your Mercury and oppose your Saturn and it's in the sixth house and it's in the third decan and it's, like they'll go on and on and on about all of these details. And the details can um, really overwhelm the mind and make it almost impossible to integrate the information that is the most needed. And so here are three things that I would do if I was starting at the very beginning of learning astrology and I was needing to learn how to synthesize everything and how to think in a more abstract way. Okay. And these are any of them to do with actual astrology? One of them. Okay, so point one, lesson one, level one is get your hands on as many charts as you can because, like I said before, intuition requires repetition and it requires familiarity. So you have to have a baseline knowledge or connection to astrology. And when you first start out, it is going to be a little cookbooky. You're going to look at a birth chart and be like, I have no idea how to synthesize this. I have no idea how to put this all together. That's okay. You can talk about it in small, detailed kind of ways or talk about individual aspects. That's totally fine. But once I have that baseline understanding, if your goal is to work with people and to help people with their transformations and to essentially use astrology and human design in a more coaching or therapeutic kind of way, right? What I do is called astrological counseling. It is a whole subtype of astrology. Not every astrologer is an astrological counselor, okay? So if that's what you want to do, you have to develop your capacity for the abstract mind, for the passive mind, for the bigger picture kind of mind. And so the second thing I would do is consume a lot of abstract media. I would look at abstract art. I would watch movies and TV shows that don't just spell everything out for you, right? Where you kind of have to figure out what is the meaning of this? What are they talking about? I would read a lot of fiction. Okay, I would read a lot of fiction because fiction often requires us to see the bigger picture, right? Especially really well-read fiction. And I would do a lot of dancing and writing and art. This is where I think that the creative person wins when it comes to studies that are spiritual in nature, because the creative person knows how to get into a flow state and trust what is coming through. And so the more you can bring art and creativity into your life, the more intuitive and sensitive you'll become. And therefore, I know it doesn't seem like these are linked, but promise me I promise you, it will allow you to use a different way of processing information so that you can understand the chart better. The third thing that I would do is I would really focus on the basics. So a lot of people get really caught up in the minute details of astrology and they try to go into really advanced territory very quickly. You can do so much work with someone just focusing on the primary archetypes in their birth chart. If you can peel things back and come back to the basics, and I don't even just mean with astrology or with the birth chart, just in life. If you can simplify and make things a lot less complicated, they're actually going to be more heavy hitting. Okay. So something that you can practice that will help you to do this in your work as an astrologer, or even if you're just reading charts for your friends, is to simplify. This is actually another thing that I learned when I was doing my yoga therapy training, where he talked about the most profound change happening with clients comes from when you make things as simple as possible. So we often want to make things really complicated, really complex, really convoluted, and we really want to almost use our knowledge, like we want to dazzle people with it, right? We're like, look at all the things that I know, look at how interesting and complex this is. And while that is um it piques people's curiosity, it doesn't actually lead to transformation. So if you're really struggling with astrology or like with reading a birth chart, especially with your clients, one thing you could practice doing is coming back to the basics and really simplifying things, um, and focusing on that instead of getting kind of lost in the weeds. So I'll sum these up. Developing the abstract intuitive mind, right? So painting, writing, dancing, consuming more abstract media, simplifying, right? Coming back to basics, making things as simple as possible, and then practice and repetition so that you can create neural pathways that allow you to do this intuitively. Okay. I know that was a bit of a tangent and we went in a million different places. I don't know if that was helpful for you, but I hope that it was. And if you have any questions, leave them below. Bye, everyone.